Hey there. Tonight we're doing something a little different, a little pestilential. We're stepping into the life of a plague cart driver in London during the Black Death, 1348, if you're keeping track, which you probably aren't because you're trying to fall asleep. This is not a story about nobles or merchants or anyone with the luxury of distance from what's happening. This is about the sound of your cartwheels on cobblestones, about the weight of bodies that aren't getting any lighter, about the mist that never quite clears, and the bells that never quite stop ringing, about a job that someone has to do and that someone is you. If you're enjoying these little excursions into historical misery, go ahead and hit that like button. Subscribe if you want more of this particular brand of existential tourism. And if you have thoughts about plague cart drivers or medieval London, or just want to tell me I'm making questionable life choices, drop a comment. I read them, probably while questioning those same life choices. Go ahead and dim the lights. Get comfortable. Maybe grab a fan if you need the white noise. Get yourself settled. Let's begin. You are a plague cart driver in London. That's what you are now. That's what you've become. The person who collects the bodies. The person who moves through the streets while everyone else who's still alive, stays inside and prays you don't knock on their door next. It's not quite dawn yet, but you're awake. You've been awake for a while, actually, lying in the darkness of your small room and listening to the bells. They started ringing an hour ago. Or maybe they never stopped ringing from yesterday. It's getting harder to tell. The bells of London used to mark time, matins, lauds, prime, the orderly progression of hours that gave shape to the day. Now they just mark death. Another body. Another soul departing. Another family that's just become smaller. You lie there and count the bells out of habit, even though you know it's pointless. Counting suggests that numbers mean something, that there's a difference between 50 dead and 60 dead, that you could somehow hold the scope of this in your mind if you just kept better track. You can't. No one can. The plague doesn't care about your ability to count. It's not waiting for you to catch up with the mathematics of it all. Your room is small. A bed, a table, a single window that looks out onto a street that used to be busy. Used to be. That phrase has become the unofficial motto of London. The city used to be a lot of things. It's not quite dawn yet, but you're awake. You've been awake for a while, actually, lying in the darkness of your small room and listening to the bells. They started ringing an hour ago. Or maybe they never stopped ringing from yesterday. It's getting harder to tell. The bells of London used to mark time, matins, lauds, prime, the orderly progression of hours that gave shape to the day. Now they just mark death. Another body. Another soul departing. Another family that's just become smaller. You lie there and count the bells out of habit, even though you know it's pointless. Counting suggests that numbers mean something. That there's a difference between 50 dead and 60 dead, that you could somehow hold the scope of this in your mind if you just kept better track. You can't. No one can. The plague doesn't care about your ability to count. It's not waiting for you to catch up with the mathematics of it all. Your room is small. A bed, a table, a single window that looks out onto a street that used to be busy. Used to be. That phrase has become the unofficial motto of London. The city used to be a lot of things. Crowded. Loud. Smelling of 1,000 different kinds of human activity. Cooking. Commerce. Waste. Life. Now it smells like mist and smoke and something else you've stopped trying to name. The mist presses against your window like it's trying to get in. Or maybe it's trying to offer you cover. Hard to say. The mist has been the only constant companion through all of this, wrapping the streets in a grey that makes everything look like a memory of itself. You sit up. Your body aches in the particular way that comes from doing the same heavy work day after day after day. Your back, your shoulders, your hands. Everything hurts in a way that's become so familiar, it's almost comfortable. Almost. You've learned not to stretch too enthusiastically in the morning. Learned not to expect your body to feel good. It's a working body now. A tool that you maintain just enough to keep it functional. Like the cart. You don't love the cart. You don't have feelings about the cart. You just make sure the wheels still turn. The bells continue. You count them without meaning to. 12. 15. 20. You stop counting. What's the point? The bells will ring all day. They'll ring tomorrow. They'll probably still be ringing when you're the one being loaded onto someone else's cart. And won't that be a nice bit of symmetry? The universe does love its patterns, even when those patterns are just different variations of everyone dies and nothing matters. You stand. The floor is cold. Everything is cold. It's summer. Or it was summer last time you bothered to track the seasons. But the cold has settled into London like it's planning to stay. The kind of cold that comes from the inside of things. From empty houses and empty streets and empty futures. You pull on your clothes. They're the same clothes you wore yesterday. The same clothes you'll wear tomorrow. There's no point in having nice clothes. No point in having multiple sets of clothes. Who are you trying to impress? The dead. They're not picky about fashion. You splash water on your face from the basin by the window. The water is cold. Of course it's cold. Everything is cold. You look at your reflection in the water's surface for just a moment. A mistake you immediately regret. You look tired. You look like someone who's been doing this work for months. You look like someone who's going to keep doing this work until either the plague stops or you stop, and you're not optimistic about which will come first. The bells ring. You've stopped counting. You gather your tools, though calling them tools feels generous. A hook for pulling bodies. A cloth for covering your face, though you're not sure what it's supposed to protect you from. The plague? God's judgment? The smell? All of the above? None of the above. The cloth is more ritual than protection at this point. Something to do with your hands while you prepare for the day. A gesture toward the idea that preparation matters. You have gloves. Leather gloves that used to belong to someone else. You don't know who. You don't want to know who. They fit well enough. They're stiff with use and other things you don't think about. The gloves are important, not because they protect you. Nothing protects you. But because they create a barrier, however thin, between your skin and the work. They let you pretend that you're not really touching what you're touching. That there's a degree of separation between you and the bodies. It's a comforting lie. You've become very fond of comforting lies. You check the cart before you leave. It's outside, waiting where you left it last night. The cart is simple. Wood and wheels, and nothing else. No decoration. No personality. It's a cart. It does what carts do. It holds things and moves them from one place to another. The fact that those things used to be people is not the cart's concern. The cart is admirably free of existential anxiety. You envy the cart sometimes. The cart never wonders if this work matters. The cart never lies awake listening to bells and trying to remember what hope felt like. The wheels are solid. You check them every morning out of habit. The cart can't break down. If the cart breaks down, the bodies pile up faster than they're already piling up. And then you're not a plague cart driver anymore. You're just someone standing in a street full of corpses, wondering how everything went so wrong so quickly. The wheels are fine. They're always fine. The cart is the most reliable relationship you have. You pull the cart behind you into the street. The wheels make a sound against the cobblestones, a rolling, grinding sound that echoes in the empty morning. That sound used to bother you, used to feel too loud, too intrusive in the quiet streets. Now you find it almost comforting. It's a sound that means you're working. That means you're moving. That means the day has started and you're doing what you're supposed to do. Purpose, even terrible purpose, is better than standing still. The mist is thick this morning. It hangs in the streets like something solid, like you could reach out and grab a handful of it. It obscures the buildings, turns the familiar streets into something dreamlike and strange. You know these streets. You've walked them every day for months. But in the mist, they become unfamiliar again. Distances stretch. Sounds muffle. You could be anywhere. You could be nowhere. The mist doesn't care about geography. The first collection is always the hardest. Not physically. They're all physically hard. But mentally. The first collection is when you have to remember what you're doing. Have to consciously choose to walk up to a door and knock and wait for someone to answer. If anyone answers at all. Have to look at a body and see a person. Briefly. Before you train your mind to see a task instead. After the first collection, it gets easier. Not easy. Never easy. But easier. The mind is very good at adjusting to horror. It's one of humanity's most impressive and most depressing talents. You know where to go. There are marks on the doors now. Red crosses painted hastily. Sometimes with prayers, sometimes with nothing but the cross itself. A simple symbol that means everything and nothing. It means the plague has visited this house. It means someone inside is dead or dying. It means stay away, unless you're the person whose job is to not stay away. Then it means come here. Come collect what's left. Come do the work that no one else will do. The first house is narrow, squeezed between two other narrow houses on a street that used to be prosperous. You can tell it used to be prosperous by the details that haven't quite faded yet. The carved lintel above the door, the quality of the stonework, the size of the windows. Prosperity is always visible in the details. So is its absence. The windows are dark. The door is marked. You knock even though you know no one will answer. You always knock. It's polite. It's procedure. It's a way of pretending that this is a normal transaction between normal people in a normal city. No one answers. You wait the appropriate amount of time, long enough to be respectful, short enough to keep moving, and then you push the door open. It's unlocked. They're always unlocked now. What's the point of locks? What are you protecting? Your possessions. The plague doesn't want your possessions. Your family? The plague has already taken your family, or it will soon, and a lock won't stop it. Inside, the house is dark and still. The smell hits you immediately, even through the cloth covering your face. It's the smell of sickness and death and bodies that have been still for too long. You've become very familiar with this smell. You could probably identify it in your sleep now, which is a skill you never wanted and can't get rid of. The smell is everywhere in London. It's in the streets, in the buildings, in your clothes, in your hair. You've stopped noticing it most of the time. It's just the smell of the city now. The smell of 1348. You find the body in the main room. A man, middle-aged, lying on a pallet near the cold fireplace. He's been dead for at least a day, maybe 2. It's hard to tell. Time moves strangely around the dead. He's lighter than he should be. They're always lighter than they should be. The plague takes weight along with everything else. Takes substance. Takes the heaviness that comes from being alive. You lift him, not gently exactly, but not roughly either. There's a middle ground you found, a way of handling bodies that's efficient without being cruel. The dead don't care how you handle them, but you care. You have to care about something, and this is what you've chosen. You carry him to the cart. The mist swirls around you as you walk. The body is awkward to carry, bodies always are. All elbows and angles and weight distributed wrong. But you've gotten good at this. You've developed a technique. Everyone develops a technique. You load him onto the cart with the practiced motion of someone who's done this hundreds of times. Because you have. You've done this hundreds of times. You'll do it hundreds more. The cart doesn't judge. The cart just accepts what you give it and waits for more. You go back inside to check the rest of the house. Sometimes there are more bodies. Sometimes there are survivors who need help, though what help you can offer is limited. You're not a doctor. You're not a priest. You're just someone with a cart. But sometimes people see the cart and feel relief anyway, because at least someone came. At least someone is still doing something, even if that something is just removing the evidence of loss. The house is empty except for the dead man. No family. No servants. No one left to mourn or mark his passing. You wonder briefly who he was, what he did, whether he was kind or cruel or somewhere in between. Then you stop wondering, because wondering is dangerous. Wondering leads to thinking, and thinking leads to feeling, and feeling leads to the kind of breakdown you can't afford. Not today. Not any day. You have work to do. You close the door behind you when you leave. You always close the doors. It's a small gesture, meaningless in the scope of everything, but it feels important. Like you're giving the house back its privacy. Like you're acknowledging that this was a place where someone lived, even if no one lives there anymore. The bells are still ringing. Of course they are. The second house is 3 streets over. You know the route by heart now. Left at the corner where the baker used to be. Straight past the church with the crooked spire. Right at the well that no one uses anymore because someone said the water was cursed. And whether or not the water is actually cursed is less important than the fact that everyone believes it is. Belief shapes reality more than reality does, especially now. This house is smaller, poorer. The door isn't marked with a cross, but you know anyway. Someone came to find you yesterday. A neighbor, a friend, someone who still had the energy to care about proper disposal of the dead. They told you the address, told you there were 2 bodies, a woman and a child. They didn't tell you anything else. They didn't need to. The story is always the same. The details change, but the story is always the same. You knock. You wait. You enter. The woman and child are in the back room, lying together on a bed that's too small for both of them. The woman's arm is around the child, protecting even in death. Especially in death. It's the kind of detail that would break your heart if you let it, so you don't let it. You've learned to look without seeing, to process without feeling. It's a survival skill, not for your body. Your body is probably doomed regardless of how you feel about it. But for your mind needs to survive this, even if nothing else does. The child is light. Impossibly light. You lift them both, the woman first, then the child, and carry them to the cart one at a time. The cart accepts them without comment. The cart is very good at its job. You're loading the child onto the cart when you hear a sound behind you. A door opening. Footsteps. You turn and see a woman standing in the doorway of the house next door. She's old, or maybe she's young, and the plague has aged her. It's hard to tell anymore. Everyone looks old now. Everyone looks tired. She doesn't say anything. You don't say anything. What is there to say? She watches you load the child onto the cart, watches you arrange the small body next to the woman's body, watches you pull the cloth over both of them, covering them from view. It's not much of a dignity, but it's the only dignity you can offer. The woman in the doorway nods once. You nod back. It's an entire conversation without words. Thank you for doing this. I'm sorry you have to do this. We're all doing the best we can. None of us are doing well enough. The woman goes back inside and closes the door. You hear the sound of a bolt sliding into place. She's locking the door, protecting herself from something. From you, maybe. From the cart. From the visible evidence that the plague is still here, still taking, still winning. You don't blame her for locking the door. You'd lock the door too if you thought it would help. The morning continues. The mist continues. The bells continue. You continue. Third house. Fourth house. Fifth house. The numbers blur together. The streets blur together. The bodies blur together. You're not being callous. You're being practical. There's a difference, and that difference is the only thing keeping you functional. You can't remember every face, can't hold every story, can't carry the weight of every individual loss. The weight of the collective loss is already too much. If you tried to carry the individual losses too, you'd collapse under it. You'd become just another body for someone else to collect. So you don't remember faces. You remember addresses. You remember which streets have been hit hardest. You remember which houses still have survivors and which houses are empty. You remember the logistics of death because logistics are manageable. Logistics are something you can control. You can't control the plague. You can't control who dies. But you can control the route you take through the city. You can control how efficiently you load the cart. You can control the small, meaningless details that make you feel like you're doing something other than just witnessing the end of the world. The cart is getting full. Not full enough to make the trip to the graves yet. You've learned to maximize each trip, to wait until the cart is as full as it can be before you make the journey outside the city walls. But full enough that you're conscious of the weight. The cart is heavier now. The wheels make a different sound against the cobblestones. Lower. More grinding. The sound of burden. You pass a church. St. Dunstan's maybe. Or St. Bride's. You've lost track of which church is which. They all look the same now anyway. Stone buildings with bells that won't stop ringing. The bells of this particular church are ringing as you pass. Ringing for someone. Ringing for everyone. The bells have given up on individuality. They're not ringing for John the baker, or Mary the seamstress, or anyone specific. They're just ringing for the concept of death. For the abstract idea of loss. The bells are exhausted. You can hear it in the tone. Even the bells are tired. A priest stands in the doorway of the church. He's young. or he was young before all this started. Now he just looks hollow. He watches you pass with the cart. You nod to him. He nods back. Another wordless conversation. Bless you for this work. Pray for me while you're at it. We're all damned anyway. God has left the building. The priest goes back inside. You keep moving. The marketplace is ahead. Or what used to be the marketplace. Some of the stalls are still operating, manned by people who have decided that commerce is a form of defiance. That selling vegetables or bread or cloth is a way of insisting that life continues, even when all evidence suggests otherwise. You admire their optimism. You don't share it, but you admire it. Optimism is a luxury you can't afford. Optimism requires believing that tomorrow will be different from today, and you know better. There are bodies in the marketplace, not in the stalls. The merchants have standards apparently, but in the spaces between, collapsed against walls, lying in doorways. The plague doesn't care about property lines, doesn't care about public versus private space. The plague goes where it wants and takes who it wants, and the marketplace is as good a place as any. You collect 3 bodies from the marketplace, 2 men and a woman. You don't know if they were merchants or customers, or just people who happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. It doesn't matter. They're bodies now. Tasks to complete. Wait to add to the cart. One of the merchants watches you work. He's selling apples, or trying to. The apples look good. Fresh. Probably the last fresh apples in London. You wonder where he got them. You wonder if anyone is buying them. You wonder if he's going to be on your cart tomorrow. You don't ask. He doesn't offer. You load the bodies and move on. The cart is full now. Properly full. The kind of full that means it's time to make the journey to the graves. You count the bodies out of habit. 12. No, 13. Unlucky number. Though luck seems like a quaint concept at this point. What's luck got to do with anything? The plague doesn't care about luck. The plague is the ultimate equalizer. Rich, poor, lucky, unlucky. Everyone ends up on the cart eventually. You turn the cart toward the city gates, toward the graves. The wheels protest under the weight. The sound is different now. Heavier. More laboured. The cart is working hard. You're working hard. Everything is hard. But the work continues, because what else is there? The journey to the graves takes you through the quietest parts of the city, the parts where people have either died or fled, the parts where the houses stand empty and the streets are silent except for your cart and your footsteps and the ever-present bells. The mist is thicker here, or maybe it just seems thicker because there's nothing to break it up. No people. No movement. Just grey air and grey stone and the grey feeling of a city that's forgotten what life looks like. You pass St. Paul's Cathedral, the great church of London. The spiritual heart of the city. The building that's supposed to represent God's presence and God's power and God's love for his people. The bells of St. Paul's are ringing. They're always ringing. They ring louder than any other bells in the city, as if volume could somehow make up for the fact that God doesn't seem to be listening. You stop for a moment and look up at the cathedral. It's an impressive building. Tall, solid, built to last centuries, built to outlast everyone who built it, and it will. The cathedral will still be standing long after you're gone, long after everyone in your cart is gone, long after everyone currently alive in London is gone, the cathedral will remain, a monument to faith in a God who allowed this to happen. You're not angry at God. Anger requires energy you don't have. You're not even disappointed in God. Disappointment requires expectations, and you've learned to stop having those. You're just aware of God's absence, or God's presence in a form so incomprehensible that it looks like absence. Either way, the result is the same. The plague continues. The bodies pile up. The cart fills and empties and fills again. And the cathedral stands there ringing its bells, insisting that all of this means something. Maybe it does. Maybe there's a divine plan you're too small to see. Maybe this is all part of some cosmic design that will make sense eventually, in retrospect, from a distance of centuries. Maybe the people who come after, if there are people who come after, will look back on this time and see purpose in it, see meaning, see the hand of God shaping history. Or maybe it's just a plague. Maybe people are dying because disease exists and humans are fragile, and sometimes terrible things happen for no reason at all. Maybe the bells are just bells, and the cathedral is just a building, and you're just a person with a cart trying to make it through another day. You don't know. You'll never know. So you stop looking at the cathedral and keep moving. The city gates are ahead. The guards who used to man the gates are gone, dead or fled or reassigned to some other pointless task. The gates stand open. No one is trying to get into London anymore. The only traffic is outbound, people fleeing if they can, and carts like yours carrying the dead to their final resting place. Though resting place is a generous term for what awaits, outside the walls the landscape changes. Inside the city there's still a pretense of order, streets and buildings and the structure of civilization, even if that civilization is dying. Outside the walls, the pretense drops. This is where the city puts the things it doesn't want to see, the things it can't ignore but can't bear to acknowledge. The dead. The graves are ahead. You can smell them before you see them, even through the mist, even through the cloth covering your face. The smell of the graves is different from the smell of individual death. It's bigger, more concentrated. The smell of death at scale. The smell of a city's worth of bodies returning to the earth faster than the earth can accept them. The graves aren't really graves anymore. They were graves at first. Individual holes dug with care. Bodies laid to rest with ceremony. Prayers said over each one. That lasted about a week. Then the deaths accelerated, and the graves became trenches. Long, deep trenches where bodies were laid side by side, efficiently, with minimal ceremony. That lasted another week. Now the trenches are pits, mass pits where bodies are deposited in layers, covered with lime, covered with dirt, and then more bodies are added on top. It's not burial. It's storage. It's disposal. It's the only practical solution to an impractical problem. There are other carts here. 3 of them. Other drivers doing the same work you're doing. You nod to them. They nod back. No one speaks. What would you say? How's your day going? Busy. Yeah, me too. Lots of death today. Really impressive death. The death is really coming along nicely. No. You don't speak. You just work. You pull your cart to the edge of the nearest pit. The pit is deep. Deeper than you are tall. Deeper than seems necessary until you remember that this pit will be full soon. Maybe today. maybe tomorrow, and then they'll dig another pit, and another, and another. The earth outside London's walls is becoming more grave than ground, more death than dirt. You unload the bodies, one by one. You've developed a technique for this too, a way of lifting and lowering that minimizes strain on your back. That keeps you functional. You can't afford an injury, can't afford to stop working. If you stop working, you stop eating. If you stop eating, you become one of the bodies. The system is very clear about this. The bodies land in the pit with soft sounds, thuds, rustles. The sound of weight meeting earth. You try not to look at them once they're in the pit. Try not to see how they land. Try not to notice the other bodies already there, the layers of dead that stretch down into the darkness. You focus on the task. Lift, lower, lift, lower. 12 bodies. 13 bodies. The cart empties. One of the other drivers is standing near his cart, taking a break. He's older than you. Or maybe he's the same age and just looks older. He catches your eye and makes a gesture, a sort of shrug that encompasses everything. The pits, the carts, the city, the plague, the entirety of this situation. You shrug back. What else is there to do? The driver pulls out a piece of bread and offers you half. You take it. You're not hungry. You're never hungry anymore. Hunger requires an appetite, and appetite requires caring about your body's needs. But you eat anyway. The bread is stale. It tastes like nothing. You chew and swallow, and the bread sits in your stomach like a stone. The driver eats his half. You both stand there, two people eating bread next to a pit full of corpses, and somehow this is normal now. This is just what people do. Busy today, the driver says. His voice is rough, like he hasn't used it in a while. Every day is busy, you say. He nods. True enough. That's the entire conversation. You finish your bread. He finishes his. You both return to your carts. You pull your empty cart away from the pit. The wheels are lighter now. The sound is different. Higher. Almost cheerful, if a cart could be cheerful. The cart is pleased to be empty. The cart doesn't like carrying weight. You understand the feeling. The journey back to the city is faster. It's always faster when the cart is empty. You move through the mist, through the quiet landscape outside the walls, back toward the gates, back toward the city, back toward more bodies. Because the work isn't done. The work is never done. The work will continue until either the plague stops or you stop, and you're not optimistic about which will come first. You're back inside the city walls by midday. Midday is a relative term. The sun is somewhere above the mist, providing a vague sense of light without actually being visible. Time is measured by the bells now, not by the sun. The bells tell you when it's morning, when it's noon, when it's evening. The bells structure your day. The bells are the only reliable thing left. You're tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep fixes. The kind of tired that lives in your bones, that accumulates day after day until you can't remember what not tired feels like. But tired doesn't matter. Tired is just a state of being. You can work while tired. You've been working while tired for months. Tired is your default setting now. The afternoon collections begin. You know where to go. You always know where to go. The marked doors. The addresses people have given you. The houses where the silence is too complete. You've developed an instinct for death. You can feel it in a street, can sense which houses are occupied by the living and which houses are occupied by the recently not living. It's not a skill you wanted. It's not a skill you're proud of. But it's a skill you have, house after house, body after body. The cart fills again. The routine is almost meditative at this point. There's a rhythm to it. A pattern. Knock. Wait. Enter. Find. Lift. Carry. Load. Move on. Knock. Wait. Enter. Find. Lift. Carry. Load. Move on. The repetition is soothing in its way. You don't have to think. Don't have to feel. Just follow the pattern. Just do the work. You're loading a body onto the cart. An elderly man, thin and light, his face peaceful in death, when you hear a voice behind you. Thank you. You turn. A woman is standing in the doorway of the house you just exited. She's young. Younger than you, probably, though age is hard to judge anymore. She's holding a child, a living child, which is rare enough to be startling. The child is maybe 3 years old, maybe 4. The child is staring at you with wide, solemn eyes. That was my father, the woman says. She's not crying. No one cries anymore. Tears require water and energy and the belief that crying might help. Thank you for taking him. You nod. You don't know what to say. Your welcome seems wrong. I'm sorry for your loss seems inadequate. Everything seems inadequate. Is it? The woman hesitates. Is it quick? At the end? You don't know how to answer that. You don't know if it's quick. You're not there at the end. You only arrive after the end has already happened. But she's looking at you like you might have answers, like you might be able to offer some comfort. So you lie. Yes, you say. It's quick. She nods. She wants to believe you. She needs to believe you. So she does. Will you? She hesitates again. Will you say a prayer for him? You're not a priest. You're not even particularly religious. But she's asking, and you can't say no. So you bow your head. You close your eyes. You try to remember the words to a prayer. Any prayer. The words come slowly, dredged up from a childhood that feels like it belonged to someone else. Eternal rest grant unto him, O Lord, you say. The words feel strange in your mouth, formal, ancient, and let perpetual light shine upon him. May he rest in peace. Amen, the woman says. Amen, you echo. The woman goes back inside. The door closes. You stand there for a moment, still holding the prayer in your mind. You wonder if it helped. You wonder if prayers help at all. You wonder if God is listening, or if God stopped listening months ago when the plague arrived and decided to stay. You don't know. You'll never know. So you return to the cart and continue working. The afternoon stretches. The mist thickens. The bells continue their endless ringing. You collect more bodies. The cart fills. You make another trip to the pits. You unload. You return. The cart fills again. The pattern continues. The work continues. Everything continues except the people, who stop. You're in a narrow street near the river when you see the dog. It's a small dog, some kind of terrier, sitting in the middle of the street and staring at a closed door. The dog is thin. Everyone is thin now. Everything is thin. The city itself feels thin, stretched too tight, ready to tear. The dog doesn't move as you approach with the cart, just sits there, staring at the door. waiting for someone who isn't coming back. You've seen this before. Dogs waiting for masters who died. Cats sitting on doorsteps of empty houses. Animals don't understand death the way humans do. They just understand absence. They understand that someone was here and now isn't, and they don't know why. You walk past the dog. The dog doesn't acknowledge you. Just keeps staring at the door, waiting. You wonder how long the dog will wait. Days? Weeks? Until it starves? You wonder if you should do something. Take the dog with you, find it food, find it a new home. But you don't. You can't save the dog. You can't save anyone. You can barely save yourself. So you keep walking, and the dog keeps waiting, and that's just how things are now. The house with the closed door. The door the dog is watching is marked with a red cross. You know what that means. You knock. You wait. You enter. There are two bodies inside. A man and a woman. Husband and wife, probably. They're lying together in bed, hands clasped. It's almost peaceful, almost romantic in a grim sort of way. They died together. They didn't have to face the aftermath alone. There's a mercy in that, however small. You load them onto the cart. Both of them. Together. You arrange them carefully, keeping their hands clasped. It's a small gesture, meaningless in the scope of everything, but it feels important, like you're honoring something, like you're acknowledging that these were people who loved each other, once. Before the plague, before the end. When you come back outside, the dog is still there, still waiting. You look at the dog. The dog looks at you. You have a brief, absurd urge to explain. To tell the dog that its people aren't coming back. That it needs to move on. That waiting is pointless. But you can't explain that to the dog. You can barely explain it to yourself. You leave the dog there, waiting. What else can you do? The cart is full again. You make another trip to the pits. The sun is lower now, or you assume it is. The light is dimmer. The mist is darker. Evening is approaching, which means the work is almost done. Almost. Not quite. There are always a few more collections. Always a few more bodies. The plague doesn't stop working just because you're tired. You unload the cart at the pits. The same routine. Lift. Lower. Lift. Lower. The bodies disappear into the darkness of the pit. You don't watch them land. You've learned not to watch. Watching makes it harder. Watching makes you think about the fact that these were people. That they had names and lives and people who loved them. That they mattered, once. Before they became tasks. Before they became weight on your cart. The other drivers are still here. Still working. One of them, a woman with grey hair and a face like weathered stone, nods to you as you finish unloading. You nod back. The silent language of people doing terrible work together. We're still here. We're still doing this. We haven't given up yet. Or maybe we have given up. But we're still going through the motions. And isn't that the same thing? You pull the empty cart away from the pits. The wheels are light again. The sound is almost cheerful. The cart is pleased. The cart doesn't understand the weight of what it carries. The cart just knows empty versus full, light versus heavy. The cart has the right idea. Maybe you should be more like the cart. Maybe you should stop understanding and just exist. Just roll forward and accept whatever weight is placed on you, and then roll forward again when the weight is removed. But you're not a cart, you're a person. And people understand things, even when understanding hurts. The journey back to the city is quiet. The mist has thickened to the point where you can barely see 10 feet ahead. The city walls emerge from the grey like a memory, like something you dreamed once. You pass through the gates, back into London, back into the streets, back into the work. You make a few more collections as evening deepens into night. The light is almost gone now. You're working by feel as much as by sight, finding houses by memory, finding bodies by instinct. The cart fills slowly. You're tired, so tired. But the work continues. The work always continues. You're loading what you hope is the last body of the day. A young man, barely more than a boy, found in an alley near the docks. When you realize you can't remember his face, you just looked at him, just lifted him, just carried him to the cart. But you can't remember what he looked like. Can't remember if his eyes were open or closed. Can't remember if he looked peaceful or afraid. You can't remember, and that should bother you. But it doesn't. You've stopped remembering faces, stopped remembering details. It's a mercy, really. A small mercy in a time when mercies are rare. You load the boy onto the cart. The cart accepts him without comment. The cart is very good at its job. The bells are still ringing. They've been ringing all day. They'll ring all night. They'll ring tomorrow. The bells never stop. You've started to wonder if the bell ringers are still alive, or if the bells are ringing themselves now, if the bells have become so accustomed to ringing that they've forgotten how to stop, if the bells are just as trapped in this routine as you are. You make one final trip to the pits, the last trip of the day. The mist is so thick now that you can barely see the cart in front of you. You navigate by memory, by the feel of the cobblestones under your feet, by the sound of the wheels. You know this route. You've walked it dozens of times, hundreds of times. You could walk it blind. The pits are dark. The other drivers are gone. You're alone with your cart and your bodies and the darkness. You unload quickly, efficiently. You don't think about what you're doing. Don't think about the bodies disappearing into the pit. Don't think about the fact that tomorrow you'll be back here doing the same thing. Don't think at all. Just work. The cart is empty. The day is done. You pull the cart away from the pits and start the journey back to the city, back to your small room, back to your bed, back to the brief respite before tomorrow begins and the whole thing starts again. The city is quiet as you return, quieter than usual. The bells have finally stopped, or maybe you've just stopped hearing them. The mist wraps everything in silence. Your footsteps echo. The cart wheels echo. Everything echoes in the empty streets. You're alone in a city of thousands. Alone in a city of the dead and the dying and the few who are still clinging to life. You return the cart to its place outside your room. You check the wheels one last time. They're fine. They're always fine. The cart is reliable. The cart is the most stable relationship you have. You pat the side of the cart, a gesture that would seem absurd if anyone were watching. But no one is watching. No one cares what you do. So you pat the cart, and the cart sits there, and that's enough. You go inside. Your room is dark, cold, empty. You light a candle, a small luxury, but one you allow yourself at the end of the day. The candle flickers. The light is weak, but it's something. It pushes back the darkness just enough to make the room feel less like a tomb. You sit on the edge of your bed. Your body aches. Everything aches. Your back, your shoulders, your hands, your feet, your soul, if you still have one. You're not sure anymore. You might have left your soul somewhere along the way, dropped it in the street, left it in one of the houses, deposited it in the pits along with all the bodies. You don't feel like you have a soul anymore. You feel like you're just a body that's still moving. A cart that hasn't stopped yet. You eat something. You're not sure what. Bread, maybe. Or cheese. Something that requires no preparation. Something that you can chew and swallow without thinking. Food is fuel now. Nothing more. You don't taste it. Don't enjoy it. Just consume it because your body needs it to keep functioning. You wash your hands. The water is cold. The water is always cold. You scrub your hands hard, trying to remove the feeling of the day, the feeling of the bodies, the feeling of death. But the feeling doesn't wash off. It's in your skin now. Under your skin. Part of you. You'll never be clean again. You've accepted this. You lie down on your bed. The blanket is thin. Everything is thin. You pull it over yourself anyway. The candle flickers. You watch the shadows dance on the ceiling. You think about the day, about the bodies you collected, about the woman who asked you to pray, about the dog waiting in the street, about the couple who died holding hands, about all of it and none of it. You think about tomorrow. Tomorrow will be the same as today, the same routine, the same work, the same bodies, the same cart, the same pits, the same bells, the same mist, the same everything. Tomorrow will be exactly like today, except the faces will be different, the addresses will be different, the details will be different, but the shape of it will be the same. And the day after tomorrow will be the same as tomorrow. And the day after that will be the same as the day after tomorrow. On and on. Day after day, body after body. Cart after cart. Pit after pit. Until either the plague stops or you stop. And you're not optimistic about which will come first. You wonder how long this will continue. Weeks? Months? Years? You wonder if London will survive this. If anyone will survive this. You wonder if there will be a world after the plague, or if this is just the new world now. A world of empty streets and full graves and bells that never stop ringing. You wonder if you'll survive. Probably not. The odds aren't good. You're exposed to the plague every day. Every body you touch, every house you enter, every breath you take in the streets of this dying city. You're probably already infected, probably already dying. You just don't know it yet. The plague is patient. The plague takes its time. The plague will get you eventually. But not today. Today you survived. You did your work. You collected the bodies. You filled the cart. You emptied the cart. You came home. You're still here, still breathing, still existing. That's something. Not much, but something. The candle burns lower. The shadows deepen. You close your eyes. You're tired. So tired. The kind of tired that sleep might not fix, but sleep is all you have. So you sleep. Or you try to. Sleep comes in fragments now. Brief moments of unconsciousness interrupted by the sound of bells, real or imagined. By dreams of carts and bodies and pits that never fill. By the feeling that you're falling endlessly into darkness. But you sleep anyway. Because tomorrow you'll wake up and do it all again. The bells will ring. The mist will hang in the streets. The cart will wait. The bodies will need collecting. The work will continue. And you'll continue with it. Because what else is there? You're a plague cart driver in London in 1348. This is your life now. This is your purpose. This is what you do. You collect the dead. You transport them to the pits. You return for more. Day after day, body after body. Until the plague stops or you stop. And you're not optimistic about which will come first. But that's tomorrow's problem. Tonight, you sleep. Or you try to. In your small room. In your thin bed. Under your thin blanket. With the sound of bells, real or imagined, ringing in the distance. With the smell of mist and death, and the city slowly dying around you. With the knowledge that tomorrow will be the same as today, and the day after tomorrow will be the same as tomorrow, and on forever, or until it isn't. The candle burns out. The room goes dark. You lie there in the darkness, breathing, existing, surviving. For now. For tonight. For this moment. And that's enough. It has to be enough. Because it's all you have. The bells ring in the distance. Or maybe they don't. Maybe you're just imagining them. Maybe the bells have become so much a part of you that you hear them even when they're silent. Maybe the bells are inside you now. Maybe you've become a bell yourself, ringing endlessly, announcing death, marking time, structuring the hours of a city that's forgotten what life looks like. You drift. Not quite asleep, not quite awake. Somewhere in between. In the liminal space where the day ends and the night begins and tomorrow waits, patient and inevitable. Tomorrow with its bodies and its cart and its pits and its bells. Tomorrow with its mist and its silence and its endless grinding routine. But that's tomorrow. Tonight you rest. Or you try to. In the darkness. In the cold. In the small, thin space between one day and the next. And somewhere in the city, the bells ring. Or don't ring. Or ring only in your mind. It doesn't matter. The bells are always ringing. The bells will always be ringing. The bells are the sound of 1348. The bells are the sound of the plague. The bells are the sound of London dying, one body at a time. And you're the person who collects those bodies. Who loads them onto a cart. Who takes them to the pits. Who returns for more. Day after day. Body after body. Until the plague stops or you stop. You're a plague cart driver. This is your work. This is your life. This is your purpose, however grim, however meaningless, however temporary. And tomorrow you'll wake up and do it all again. The bells ring. The mist hangs in the streets. The cart waits. The bodies wait. The pits wait. Everything waits. And you sleep. Or try to. In the darkness. In the silence. In the brief respite before the bells begin again, and the work continues, and the day starts over. Tomorrow. Always tomorrow. Forever tomorrow. Until there are no more tomorrows. Until the plague stops, or you stop, or the city stops, or the world stops. But that's not tonight. Tonight you rest. Tonight you exist. Tonight you survive. And that's enough. It has to be enough. Because it's all you have. Sleep now. Rest now. Let the darkness take you. Let the exhaustion pull you under. Let the day end and the night begin, and tomorrow wait, patient and inevitable, on the other side of sleep. You're a plague cart driver in London in 1348. You've survived another day. You've done your work. You've collected the dead. You've filled the cart. You've emptied the cart. You've come home. And tomorrow, you'll do it all again. But that's tomorrow. Tonight, you sleep. The bells ring in the distance. Or maybe they don't. Maybe it's just your imagination. Maybe it's just the sound of your own heartbeat, steady and persistent, reminding you that you're still alive. Still here. Still breathing. For now. For tonight. For this moment. And that's enough. Sleep now. Rest now. Let go. Tomorrow will come soon enough. With its bodies and its cart and its pits and its bells, with its mist and its silence and its endless grinding routine. But that's tomorrow. Tonight you rest. Sleep now. The bells ring. Or don't ring. It doesn't matter. Sleep. You wake. Again. The bells are ringing. Again. The mist is there. Again. The cart is waiting. Again. How many days has it been? You've lost count. Not because you're incapable of counting. You can still count bodies, still count trips to the pits. But because days have stopped being discrete units. They've become one continuous experience. One long day that never ends. One eternal moment of waking and working and sleeping and waking. You remember when this started. Not the plague itself, that arrived quietly, almost apologetically, in late autumn. A few deaths in the harbour district, a merchant ship from Calais, some sailors who died before anyone thought to ask questions. The authorities noticed. Of course they noticed. But they didn't panic. Not yet. Plague was a word people used carefully. A word that carried weight. A word that meant something. The Lord Mayor convened a council. You remember hearing about it. Everyone heard about it. The council met in the Guildhall and discussed measures. Sensible measures. Reasonable measures. They would quarantine the affected houses. They would close the markets near the docks. They would hire additional grave diggers. They would monitor the situation closely. They would contain this. That was in November. By December, the quarantines had failed. By January, the markets were closed, but it didn't matter because the plague had already spread inland. By February, the professional grave diggers were dead. All of them. Every single one. The men who'd spent their lives digging graves had dug their last graves and then fallen into them. That's when they started hiring anyone. Everyone. People like you. People who had no particular skill with death, but had the basic ability to lift a body and push a cart. People who were desperate enough or stupid enough or numb enough to take the work. You're not sure which category you fell into. Maybe all three. The plague moved through the city like water finding cracks. It started in the east side, in the cramped quarters near the docks where the sailors lived, and the merchants stored their goods, and the rats, always the rats, moved freely through the narrow alleys. Pudding Lane was the first street to be completely emptied, every house, every family. Gone within 2 weeks. Then Bread Street. Then Fish Street Hill. The names are almost funny now. Bread Street, where no one bakes bread anymore because the bakers are dead. Fish Street Hill, where the fish market closed in January and never reopened, because there's no one left to sell fish and no one left to buy it. The authorities tried to track it, tried to map it, tried to understand the pattern. Was it the air? The water? The alignment of stars? Divine punishment for collective sin? They had theories. Everyone had theories. The physicians with their beaked masks had the most elaborate theories. Miasma. Bad humors. Corrupted blood. They bled people. They prescribed herbs. They recommended prayer and fasting and avoiding certain foods and sleeping with windows open or closed. The recommendations changed weekly, daily, hourly. None of it mattered. The plague didn't care about theories. The plague didn't read the physicians' treatises. The plague just moved, street by street, house by house, body by body. By March, the east side was a graveyard. The Tower district followed. The cramped streets around the Tower of London, where the poor lived in the shadow of the fortress, emptied like water draining from a basin. Petty Wales. Tower Street. Mark Lane. You collected so many bodies from Mark Lane that you stopped reading the addresses. You just knew. That corner house. That building with the red door. That narrow alley where the cart barely fits. The city proper held out longer. The wealthy districts. The areas where merchants and guildmasters lived in their fine houses with their fine furniture and their fine sense of security. They believed their wealth would protect them. Their clean homes. Their better food. Their distance from the poor. They were wrong. The plague doesn't care about wealth. The plague doesn't respect property lines. The plague is remarkably egalitarian. Everyone ends up on the cart eventually. Cheapside fell in April. The Great Market Street, the commercial heart of London, went quiet. The shops closed. The merchants fled or died. The street that had been loud with commerce and argument and the constant noise of buying and selling became silent. You remember the first time you pushed your cart down Cheapside and heard nothing but your own wheels on the cobblestones. It felt wrong, unnatural, like the world had ended and no one had bothered to tell you. The authorities gave up trying to control it sometime in May. You're not sure of the exact date. There was no announcement, no official declaration. They just stopped pretending, stopped holding councils, stopped issuing proclamations. The Lord Mayor disappeared, fled to his country estate probably, or died. No one knows. No one cares. The city government simply dissolved, evaporated, left behind a skeleton crew of functionaries who kept the most basic systems running. The gates, the walls, the collection of bodies. That's when the system you're part of became official, became organized, became the only thing that mattered. Someone, you don't know who, decided that bodies needed to be collected daily, that carts needed to run routes, that the pits needed to be dug continuously, that drivers needed to be paid. Not much, but enough. Enough to keep you coming back. Enough to keep the system running. You're not sure who's paying you. The coins appear at the end of each week. Someone hands them to you at the pits. A man whose name you don't know and whose face you barely remember. He might be different every week. He might be the same person. You don't look closely. You take the coins. You go home. You come back the next day. The system perpetuates itself. That's what you've realized. No one's in charge anymore. No one's making decisions. The system just exists. It exists because it has to exist. Because, without it, the bodies would pile up in the streets, and that's somehow worse than bodies piling up in pits. The system has achieved a kind of autonomy, a kind of life. It doesn't need leadership, It doesn't need purpose. It just needs people willing to push carts and dig holes and keep moving. You're one of those people. You've become part of the machinery. A cog, a wheel, a functional component in a system that grinds on without thought or feeling or awareness of its own absurdity. And the absurdity is profound. You're moving bodies from one location to another. That's all you're doing. The bodies are dead either way. They're rotting either way. They're gone either way. You're not saving anyone. You're not preventing anything. You're not solving the problem. You're just relocating the evidence, making the death slightly less visible, slightly more manageable, slightly more acceptable to the few people who are still alive and still trying to pretend that life continues. Does it continue? You're not sure. Life implies growth, change, progress, forward motion towards something. What you're experiencing isn't life. It's existence. It's persistence. It's the bare minimum of biological function. You wake. You work. You sleep. You wake. That's not living. That's just not dying. And there's a difference. A significant difference. Though you're having trouble remembering what that difference is. You think about infection constantly, not in a panicked way, not in a fearful way, just as a fact, a certainty, a quiet knowledge that sits in the back of your mind like a stone. You're infected. Of course you're infected. How could you not be? You touch bodies all day. You breathe the air of plague houses. You stand in the pits where the dead are stacked. You're surrounded by death, immersed in it, marinated in it. The plague is patient. That's what you've learned. It doesn't kill everyone immediately. Some people die within days. Some within weeks. Some linger for months, carrying the disease, spreading it, not knowing they're already dead, just waiting for their body to catch up with the reality. You're probably one of those. One of the lingering ones. One of the walking dead. You feel fine. Mostly. You're tired, but everyone's tired. You ache, but everyone aches. You have no appetite. But who has an appetite when you spend all day collecting corpses? These could be symptoms. Or they could just be the normal experience of doing impossible work in impossible circumstances. You don't check yourself for buboes. You don't examine your body for signs. What would be the point? If you're infected, you're infected. If you're dying, you're dying. Knowing won't change anything, won't help anything. Will only add fear to exhaustion. And you don't have room for fear. You're already full. Full of numbness and routine and the grinding awareness that tomorrow will be exactly like today. Fear has transformed. That's what you've noticed. It hasn't disappeared. It's just changed shape. Changed texture. In the beginning, there was panic. Sharp, immediate, visceral panic. The kind that makes your heart race and your hands shake and your mind scream at you to run. That fear is gone. Burned out. Used up. Exhausted. What's left is something quieter, something heavier. A low, constant dread that sits in your chest like a weight. Not fear of death. Death is inevitable. Death is everywhere. Death is boring in its ubiquity. Fear of continuation. Fear that this will never end. Fear that you'll wake up tomorrow and the day after and the day after that, and it will always be the same. Always the cart. Always the bodies. Always the pits. Always the bells. Forever. That's the real horror. Not death. Endless repetition. The eternal return of the same impossible day. Work is the only thing keeping you functional. You've realized this. The routine, the structure, the simple, clear purpose of the work. Collect bodies, transport bodies, dispose of bodies. Repeat. It's mindless, it's mechanical, it's soul-crushing. But it's also stabilizing. It gives shape to the shapeless. It gives meaning to the meaningless. Not real meaning, not deep meaning. Just the shallow, functional meaning of a task that needs doing. Without the work, you'd collapse. You'd sit down and never get up. You'd stare at the mist and let it take you. You'd surrender to the weight of it all. The work prevents that. The work keeps you moving, keeps you upright, keeps you pushing the cart through the streets, even when every part of you wants to stop. Is that enough? Is that a reason to continue? You're not sure, but it's what you have. It's all you have. So you hold on to it. You grip the handles of the cart and you push and you move and you survive another day. The geography of the plague has become familiar, intimate. You know which streets are worst, which districts are emptiest, which areas still have living people, and which have been completely abandoned. The harbour district is a ghost town, completely empty. The buildings stand, but no one's inside them. The doors hang open. The windows are broken. Rats move freely through the streets. You rarely go there anymore. There's no point. Everyone who was going to die there has already died. The bodies have been collected. The houses have been emptied. What's left is just architecture, just stone and wood, just the physical remainder of a neighborhood that no longer exists. The Tower District is similar. Empty, silent, abandoned. The tower itself still stands, of course. The fortress is still guarded, still occupied. The guards watch from the walls, but they don't come down. They don't interact with the city. They've sealed themselves inside, waiting, hoping, praying that the plague won't breach the walls. You wonder if it already has. You wonder if they're dying in there too. You'll never know. The tower keeps its secrets. The city proper is where you work now. The central districts, Cheapside, Cornhill, Lombard Street. These areas still have people, not many, but some. Survivors, holdouts, people who haven't fled or died or given up. They watch from windows. They mark their doors. They leave their dead for you to collect. Lombard Street smells different than the other streets. Worse. Sweeter. The smell of decay is stronger there. You're not sure why. Maybe the buildings are closer together. Maybe the air doesn't circulate. Maybe there are just more dead. The smell clings to you when you work that street. Follows you home. Sits in your clothes. In your hair. In your lungs. Cornhill is quieter. The buildings there are larger. More space between them. The wealthy lived there. Some still do. You see curtains moving sometimes. Faces in windows. People who are still alive but staying inside. Waiting. For what? For the plague to pass? For God to intervene? For someone to tell them it's safe to come out? No one's going to tell them that. No one knows when it will be safe. If it will ever be safe. The plague might be permanent. This might be life now. Forever. The survivors might spend the rest of their lives hiding in their houses, watching from windows, waiting for a signal that never comes. Bread Street is the worst. You hate Bread Street. It's narrow. The buildings lean toward each other. The cart barely fits. And there are always bodies. Always. You collect from Bread Street every day, and every day there are more. Where are they coming from? How are there still people left to die? You don't understand it. The mathematics don't work, but the bodies keep appearing, keep waiting, keep needing to be collected. You remember the numbers from the beginning. The first week you collected maybe 10 bodies. Total. For the entire week. 10 people dead. It seemed like a lot. It seemed like a crisis. The city was in mourning. The bells rang constantly. Everyone was afraid. By the second week, it was 30 bodies. By the third week, 60. By the fourth week, you stopped counting. The numbers became meaningless. Too big. Too abstract. Your mind couldn't hold them. Couldn't process them. Could only observe them the way you might observe the weather. It's raining. It's cold. People are dying. These are just facts. Now, you don't know. Hundreds per week? Thousands. The pits are enormous. The graves are trenches. The bodies are stacked. You're one of maybe 20 cart drivers. Maybe 30. You're not sure. You see others at the pits, but you don't count them. Each driver makes multiple trips per day. Each trip carries multiple bodies. The mathematics are beyond you. Beyond anyone. The plague has exceeded human capacity for measurement. The outlying villages are gone. Completely gone. Stepney. Whitechapel. Shoreditch. These weren't part of London proper. They were separate, distinct. Small communities outside the walls. They're empty now. Erased. You went to Stepney once, early on, when they still thought the plague could be contained to specific areas. You collected 12 bodies from a single house. A family. Grandparents, parents, children, servants. All dead. All in the same house. All within days of each other. You haven't been back to Stepney. There's no reason to go back. The village is empty. The houses are empty. The streets are empty. It's just buildings now. Just architecture. Just evidence that people used to live there. The living have abandoned certain streets entirely. You've noticed this. Streets that used to be busy, used to be full of life and commerce and noise. Now they're silent, empty. Not because everyone died, though many did, but because the survivors left, fled, went somewhere else. Somewhere they believed would be safer. The countryside. Other cities. Other countries. Anywhere but here. You wonder if they made it. If they escaped. If the plague stayed in London or followed them. You'll never know. You'll never see them again. They're gone. Erased from your life as completely as the dead. Maybe more completely. The dead you see every day. The living who left. They're just memories. Ghosts of a different kind. The work has meaning. You've decided this. Not deep meaning. Not cosmic meaning. Not the kind of meaning that philosophers argue about, or priests preach about. Just functional meaning. Practical meaning. The meaning of a task that needs doing. Someone has to collect the bodies. Someone has to push the cart. Someone has to keep the system running. That someone is you. Is that enough? Is that a purpose? Is that a reason to continue existing? You're not sure. But it's what you have. And in a world where everything else has collapsed, where every other structure has failed, where every other purpose has been revealed as hollow. Maybe functional meaning is enough. Maybe the simple act of doing necessary work is sufficient. Maybe you don't need cosmic purpose. Maybe you just need to push the cart. The routine is comforting. That's the strange thing. The terrible thing. The thing you can barely admit to yourself. The routine is comforting. The sameness. The predictability. The knowledge that tomorrow will be exactly like today. In a world of chaos and death and constant loss, the routine is stable, reliable, trustworthy. The routine won't abandon you, won't betray you, won't die on you. The routine will be there tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that. You've come to depend on it, to need it, to crave it. The routine is your anchor, your foundation, your reason for waking up. Without it, you'd drift, you'd dissolve. You'd become like the mist, shapeless, purposeless, existing without existing. So you hold on to the routine. You grip it tightly. You follow it exactly. You wake at the same time. You prepare the same way. You follow the same routes. You collect the same types of bodies. You make the same trips to the pits. You return home the same way. You eat the same food. You sleep the same sleep. You wake the same way. The routine is everything. The routine is all you have. The routine is what keeps you human, or what keeps you functional, or what keeps you moving. You're not sure there's a difference anymore. The cart is waiting. It's always waiting. Patient, reliable, uncomplaining. The cart doesn't judge you, doesn't question you, doesn't wonder if this work has meaning. The cart just exists, just serves its function, just accepts what's placed upon it and moves forward. You envy the cart. You thought this before. You think it again now. The cart has achieved something you haven't. Complete acceptance, total surrender to purpose. The cart doesn't struggle with meaning, doesn't wrestle with existence, doesn't lie awake wondering if any of this matters. The cart just is. And there's a purity to that, a simplicity, a kind of peace. You're not at peace. You're not simple. You're not pure. You're complicated and exhausted and full of questions that have no answers. But you're still here, still breathing, still pushing the cart, still doing the work. And maybe that's enough. Maybe survival is enough. Maybe continuing is enough. Maybe the simple act of waking up and working and sleeping and waking up again is sufficient. Maybe you don't need more than that. Maybe more than that doesn't exist anymore. The bells ring. They're always ringing. You've stopped hearing them as individual sounds. They've become background noise, white noise, the soundtrack to existence. The bells are like the mist, like the cart, like the routine. They're just there, always, forever, part of the landscape, part of reality, part of what it means to be alive in London in 1348. You grip the handles. The wood is cold, damp, familiar. Your hands know exactly where to hold. Your body knows exactly how to move. Your mind knows exactly how to disappear. You begin walking. The cart follows. The day begins. Again. Always. Forever. The work continues. The system continues. You continue. And that's enough. It has to be enough. Because it's all there is.